Okay, let's unpack this. Think about those frustrating moments in life. Maybe you're pretty successful, you're good at getting things done, persuading people even, but there's still this kind of hollow feeling.
Right, like you're controlling the outcome, sure, but you can't shake the feeling that people don't genuinely trust you, or that you don't know what they really think.
Exactly. Or maybe it's a long-term relationship, like a marriage, that's just gone flat.
Yeah, and you've tried everything, date nights, communication techniques, maybe even counseling.
And nothing seems to reignite that spark, that feeling. It just isn't working.
And maybe most painfully, you're watching a child or a loved one struggle. You're desperate to help,
You're throwing every technique, every piece of advice you can think of at the problem.
and you just feel completely powerless because absolutely nothing seems to work.
Those hit home, don't they? They're not just frustrating, they're often deeply painful.
Absolutely. And the source material we're diving into today suggests these aren't surface-level issues you can fix with a quick tip or trick.
Right. This work describes them as deep problems, painful problems, problems that quick fix approaches can't solve. It shares this story about parents whose son is really struggling.
Yeah, failing school, socially awkward, not good at sports, the target of jokes.
And the parents are trying everything, positive reinforcement, talking to teachers, punishing bullies. They're using all the techniques.
But nothing changes. And the turning point in that story is when the parents finally realize they have to step back and look at the situation on a completely different level.
Ah, okay. So that's really the core mission of this deep dive then.
Pretty much. We're exploring insights from a really influential work on highly effective people, and the big takeaway is that true effectiveness and the lasting solutions to these persistent, painful problems come from somewhere fundamentally different than where most of us are looking.
Somewhere different.
Yeah, it's about the profound shift in how we see ourselves and the world, rooted in, well, timeless principles.
So it's not about learning a new trick or phrasing something differently. It's a much deeper internal change.
Exactly. The fundamental idea here is that we often get stuck trying to solve significant problems at the same level of thinking that created them. You need a new level of thinking, a new perspective.
Okay, so if those quick fixes don't work for deep problems, what exactly is the issue with them? Why don't they work?
Well, this work calls that focus the personality ethic. Now, it's not saying that things like personality development, communication skills, or positive thinking techniques aren't useful.
Okay, they have their place.
They can be very beneficial, sometimes even essential. But the critical point is that they are labeled as secondary traits.
Secondary. Okay, so what's primary?
Character. The argument is that if you focus only on those techniques, on the personality ethic, without building a strong foundation of character, it's fundamentally flawed for long-term success, especially in relationships.
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah.
If your character is marked by duplicity, by being two-faced, trying to use clever human relations, strategies will just breed distrust.
Yeah, people can sense that.
Even the best technique will come across as manipulative. As this work puts it simply makes no difference how good the rhetoric is, or even how good the intentions are. If there is little or no trust, there is no foundation for permanent success.
Wow. So trust is everything.
It says only basic goodness gives life to technique.
That makes total sense. If I don't trust you, I don't care how smooth you are or what script you're following, I'm going to be suspicious.
Right, and the source uses some really vivid analogies to drive this home. It compares focusing only on techniques to cramming your way through school.
Huh. Yeah, I remember those nights.
You might pass the test, maybe even get decent grades in the short term, but you haven't achieved true mastery, have you?
Yeah.
You don't really know it.
Definitely relatable. That frantic night before an exam never really sticks.
Or think about farming. This work asks, did you ever consider how ridiculous it would be to try to cram on a farm to forget to plant in the spring, play all summer, and then cram in the fall to bring in the harvest?
You can't do that. The seeds won't grow overnight.
Exactly. Farming, it reminds us, is a natural system based on the law of the harvest. You have to follow the process, put in the work at the right time, you reap what you sow, and there is simply no shortcuts for sustainable growth.
You can't cram for a marriage or cram for genuine respect from your colleagues. It just doesn't work that way.
Precisely. This work is quite clear. While personality ethic techniques might work in brief, superficial interactions,
Like maybe a quick sale or something.
maybe, but secondary traits alone have no permanent worth in long-term relationships. It cautions that eventually, if there's a lack of deep integrity, of character strength, your true motives will surface.
And boom, the relationship fails.
Right. No matter how skilled you seemed initially.
This really defines the difference between Secondary greatness, like being recognized for your talent or charm, and primary greatness, which is goodness and character. That distinction feels important.
It's central. And this is where that famous quote comes in. Ralph Waldo Emerson, as quoted here, said, "What you are shouts so loudly in my ears that I cannot hear what you say."
Wow, okay. So your character is speaking volumes, constantly, louder than your words.
Exactly. The idea is that your character communicates most eloquently, building absolute trust, regardless of eloquence or technique. There's another quote in the work from William George Jordan about the silent, unconscious, unseen influence of his life.
The influence of who you are.
This is simply the constant radiation of what man really is, not what he pretends to be. So, sure, lacking some communication skills will impact relationships, but that's secondary compared to the foundation of who you really are.
Okay, so character is the bedrock. Techniques are built on that, but they aren't the solution themselves. But how do you even begin to work on something as fundamental as character? I mean, where does this shift start?
What this work suggests, it starts with changing how you see things. It introduces the concept of paradigms.
Paradigms.
Think
Yeah.
of them as your mental maps, your models, theories, perceptions, assumptions, or frames of reference. It's the way you interpret the world.
Like the lenses you're wearing, the way you filter everything?
Yes, precisely. And the source uses that brilliant map analogy. It says, the map is not the territory. A map is just an explanation of the territory. Your paradigm is like that map.
Okay.
Now imagine you're trying to get to Chicago, but you've accidentally got a map of Detroit.
Oh, boy. Okay, that sounds like a nightmare road trip waiting to happen.
Right. Now, you could try to work on your behavior, try driving faster, taking different roads on the Detroit map.
Still heading towards Detroit, though.
Exactly. As this work points out, that would just get you to the wrong place faster. Or you could work on your attitude. Try to be really positive about the drive, enjoy the scenery on the Detroit map.
So you'd be happy, but still lost.
You still wouldn't get to Chicago,
Yeah.
but maybe you'd be happy wherever you ended up. Still lost, just cheerful about it.
So the problem isn't how you're driving or how you feel, it's the map itself, the paradigm.
That's the core insight here. The fundamental problem isn't usually our behavior or our attitude. It has everything to do with having a wrong map, a flawed paradigm.
And our paradigms deeply affect how we even see the problems we face, right?
Totally. They shape our interpretation.
How does that play out in those painful examples we started with? The flat marriage, the struggling child.
Okay, let's go back to the manager and the source who expects loyalty from employees, but deep down sees them as interchangeable mechanical parts.
Okay.
Is the problem truly the employee's disloyalty? Or is it the manager's underlying paradigm, their map, that sees people as objects to be manipulated rather than individuals with potential and value?
They're using a map for managing things, but trying to navigate a world of people. That won't work.
Exactly. Or the overwhelmed person using every time management hack they can find, just trying to cram more in.
Yeah, been there.
Is the real issue just needing more efficiency? Or is it a deeper paradigm about time, about life itself, maybe even about their own self-worth being tied to constant activity?
Getting more done faster won't fix the stress if the stress comes from believing your worth is only measured by productivity. That's a bad map.
Right. And the person in the flat marriage, trying to fix their spouse or rekindle the feeling with techniques, this work challenges us. Could the real problem be a fundamental paradigm about the spouse?
Or about what marriage is supposed to be.
Yes. Or even about what love truly is, maybe seeing it as a feeling someone else gives you, rather than something you cultivate and give.
So the way we see the problem is the problem. That perception limits our possible solutions.
That's the crucial link. And it echoes that Einstein quote, "The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them."
We need a new level of thinking, a new paradigm, a new map, which brings us to the inside-out approach you mentioned earlier.
Yes. This work introduces this as a principle-centered, character-based, inside-out approach to effectiveness. It means the starting point is you.
Me.
Yes, you. Not just your behavior, but even deeper, your paradigms, your character, your motives, the very inside.
So instead of trying to change the external world or other people, change yourself first.
Precisely. The examples it uses are simple but powerful. Want a happy marriage. Be the kind of person who generates positive energy and is easy to live with.
Okay, focus on my side of the street.
Want a cooperative teenager. Be a more understanding, consistent parent. Want to be trusted. Be trustworthy.
So simple, yet so hard sometimes.
Want that public recognition for your talent, that secondary greatness. Focus on building your character, your primary greatness, first.
You have to model the behavior and the character you want to see in your world. It starts with you.
The foundational principle here is that private victories precede public victories. Success with yourself, mastering your own character and integrity, is the prerequisite for success with others.
Can't have one without the other, really.
This work calls it futile to put personality ahead of character, to try to improve relationships with others before improving ourselves.
And the opposite of that, the outside-in view, sounds like where a lot of people get stuck, blaming everything else.
It is. That's the paradigm where people feel victimized, blaming others, blaming circumstances, convinced the problem is out there and that others need to change for things to get better.
Yeah, you see that everywhere.
This work points to unhappy marriages, where each person lists the other's faults, labor disputes where both sides want legislation to force trust, even geopolitical conflicts where groups are certain the other side is the sole problem.
Everyone thinks the problem's out there.
Right. It notes that this outside-in perspective is a dramatic paradigm shift for many, because our culture often conditions us to look outwards for solutions first.
It's definitely easier to see the speck in someone else's eye, isn't it?
It is. But the inside-out approach, starting with self, is presented as the only path to genuinely lasting solutions for deep problems.
Okay, so we're talking about making fundamental changes to ourselves, our character, our paradigms. That sounds like building new ways of being. How does this work define a habit? Seems relevant here.
It defines a habit simply as the intersection of three things: knowledge, skill, and desire.
Knowledge, skill, desire. Okay, break that down.
Knowledge is the what to do and the why. Understanding the principle. Skill is the how to do, having the actual ability. And desire is the want to do, the motivation.
You need all three.
Exactly. This work states you need all three working together to truly make something a habit in your life. Miss one, and it won't stick.
Can you use that example from the source about listening? That feels practical.
Sure, if you're ineffective in interactions because you talk but don't listen, you might need to build a habit of listening.
Okay,
That requires, do you know you should listen and why it's important? That's the knowledge.
got it.
Do you know how to listen effectively, maybe even empathetically? Do you have the techniques? That's the skill.
Right.
And crucially, do you actually want to listen? Are you willing to put aside your own thoughts to truly hear the other person? That's the desire.
Ah, the motivation piece. That feels key.
Building that habit requires work in all three dimensions. You can know why and how, but if you don't want to.
It won't happen. So it's not just intellectual understanding or just having the technique. You need the internal drive, too.
Absolutely. And this work acknowledges that building habits is sometimes a painful process. It's not easy.
Yeah, changing is hard.
It requires the willingness to subordinate what you think you want now for what you want later. That ability to sacrifice immediate impulses or gratification for a longer-term goal.
Discipline.
Right. That's crucial for developing effective habits.
This feels like a journey. I mean, developing these habits, where does this journey lead? What's the path look like?
This work maps it out along what it calls the maturity continuum. We all start dependent, think infants relying entirely on others for everything.
Fair enough. Can't do much else then.
Then we ideally grow towards independence. This is becoming self-reliant, inner-directed, capable of taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially.
Sounds like a good goal.
And this work calls true independence a worthy, liberating goal. It's huge.
Okay, so independence is the destination. Is that the peak?
And here's where it gets really interesting. This work argues that independence, while a great achievement, is not the ultimate goal for effective living.
It's not. Why not?
Because life, at its most fulfilling and productive, is fundamentally interdependent.
Interdependent. What does that mean in this context? Sounds like depending on others again.
Not quite. It's realizing that you and others, working together, can accomplish far, far more than you ever could alone. Think synergy, cooperation.
Ah, okay. Teamwork makes the dream work kind of thing.
Sort of, but deeper. This applies physically, emotionally, and intellectually. It's a higher, more mature concept than independence. But, and this is key, interdependence is a choice.
A choice.
And it's a choice only independent people can truly make. Dependent people, this work suggests, lack the character strength. They don't own enough of themselves to effectively engage in interdependence. They need others too much.
Okay, so dependence is you take care of me, independence is I take care of myself, and interdependence is we can accomplish more together because we choose to cooperate from a place of strength.
Precisely. You got it. And this ties directly into the structure of the habits themselves.
How so?
Habits 1, 2, and 3 are the private victories. They are about self-mastery, moving you from dependence towards independence.
Building that inner foundation.
Exactly. Just like you can't have a harvest without planting, you can't effectively achieve public victories without first achieving private victories. It's the inside-out sequence again.
Makes sense.
Habits 4, 5, and 6 are the public victories, focused on effective interdependence. And they absolutely require the foundation of independence built by those first 3 habits.
So you work on yourself first, build that internal strength and integrity, and that makes you capable of truly effective, mutually beneficial relationships and teamwork with others.
That's the framework this work presents. You got to get your own house in order first.
You keep using the word effectiveness. How does this work define effectiveness at its core? What does it really mean to be effective?
It uses a very simple but really powerful concept, illustrated by the fable of the goose and the golden egg.
Ah, I know that one. Don't kill the goose.
Right. So P stands for production of the golden eggs, the desired results. PC stands for production capability, the goose itself, the asset that produces those eggs.
Okay, P is results, PC is the ability to get results.
Got it. Exactly. And effectiveness, according to this work, is the balance between P and PC. If you only focus on getting more and more eggs, maximizing P, without feeding and caring for the goose, maintaining PC.
Eventually, you kill the goose. No more eggs. Duh.
It seems obvious, but we forget it all the time. Sacrificing the long-term capacity for immediate output.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that happens a lot.
This work gives several examples of this balance, or lack thereof, being crucial. Think about a machine operator pushing production quotas, P, without doing any preventative maintenance, PC.
The machine breaks down eventually, then production is zero.
Right, and the person who takes over inherits a broken machine, a mess. That's classic short-sighted management.
Okay. Any other examples?
Or the restaurant that starts watering down its famous clam chowder to save money, boosting immediate profit, P.
Ugh. Customers notice that stuff.
They do, and they stop coming.
Oh.
You destroy customer trust, damaging PC, and business dwindles. Trust is definitely a crucial PC asset in a relationship with customers.
Absolutely. What about personally?
Personally, it's burning yourself out, destroying your personal PC, your health, energy, relationships, by focusing solely on achieving results. Pushing, pushing, pushing.
That resonates. Running on empty kills productivity in the end, doesn't it? You crash.
Totally. And in relationships, constantly pushing to get your way, win arguments, or achieve your personal goals without investing time, care, and understanding in the relationship itself. PC.
The relationship bank account goes empty.
Exactly. It leads to emptiness and resentment. Conversely, investing in the relationship, building PC, creates the goodwill, the trust, the shared desire and ability to work together that leads to far greater results over time.
So effectiveness isn't just about hitting targets. It's about nurturing and maintaining the ability to hit targets sustainably, long term. It's the long game.
That's the essence of the PPC balance as presented here. It's described as a fundamental principle, like a lighthouse, guiding effectiveness in every part of life. You ignore it at your peril.
Okay, so with that foundation character over personality, fixing our paradigms, the inside-out approach, understanding habits, the PPC balance, let's get into the habits themselves. Starting with the first, private victory, habit 1.
Habit 1, be proactive. This work says this habit is rooted in our unique human endowments: self-awareness, imagination, conscience, and independent will.
Those things that make us distinctly human separate us from animals.
Right. And the core idea is that we are responsible. We have the freedom to choose our response to any situation or stimulus. We aren't just puppets.
We're not just programmed to react based on instinct or conditioning. We can choose.
Exactly. This work contrasts proactive people with reactive people. Reactive people, it says, are heavily influenced by their environment, the social climate, physical conditions.
It's like if the weather's bad, their mood is bad.
Yeah, or if someone treats them poorly, they have to get angry. They often feel victimized and focus their energy on the weaknesses of others, on problems, on circumstances outside their control.
Their language reflects that too, right?
Definitely. It's full of, I can't help it, he makes me so mad. If only the situation were different. Lots of blaming.
Passing the buck. So what about proactive people?
Proactive people, conversely, carry their own weather. They acknowledge reality, they understand the conditions, but they know they possess the power to choose their response, guided by their values, not just their feelings or
They
circumstances.
decide how they're going to be.
Yes. The example of Viktor Frankl in the concentration camps is incredibly powerful here, finding the last human freedom in choosing his attitude, his response, even in unimaginable suffering.
That really is the ultimate test of choosing your response. Puts things in perspective.
This work gives us a great tool to understand this. The circle of concern versus the circle of influence.
Okay, explain this.
The circle of concern contains all the things you worry about, but can't really control: the national debt, world events, the weather, what other people think or do.
All the stuff that keeps us up at night sometimes.
Pretty much. The circle of influence contains the things you can actually do something about: your own health, your own attitude, your own behavior, your skills, your response to things.
So things I can impact are in my circle of influence. Things I just worry about are in my circle of concern. Clear distinction.
The key insight here is where you focus your energy. Reactive people focus on the circle of concern. They complain, they blame, they accuse, they feel victimized.
Wasting energy on stuff they can't change.
And this focus, this negative energy, actually shrinks their circle of influence. They become less effective.
Wait, focusing on what you can't control makes you less able to control what you can. That feels counterintuitive.
It does, but that's the argument presented here. It's draining energy and attention from the area where you can make a difference and channeling it into worry and complaint, which achieves nothing.
Okay, so proactive people.
Proactive people, however, focus their energy on their circle of influence. They work on the things they can do something about. They work on themselves.
Taking action where it counts.
And this focus, this positive energy, is enlarging and magnifying, causing their circle of influence to expand over time.
The more you work on what's within your power, the more powerful and capable you become. That makes sense.
That's the idea. Think back to the parents and the struggling son we talked about earlier.
Right, the ones trying all the techniques.
They were initially reactive, stuck in the circle of concern, worrying about his weaknesses, blaming the school, blaming other kids. Nothing changed.
Because they were focusing outside their influence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Only when they became proactive and shifted their focus to their own circle of influence, their own paradigms about him, their own responses, their own behavior as parents, did they start generating the positive energy that could actually influence the situation and their son.
They worked on themselves instead of just getting caught up in the circumstances and trying to fix him.
Yes, they changed their map first. That's a huge shift, not just in parenting, but in any relationship or problem.
Absolutely.
This work also classifies problems into 3 types. Those under direct control, your own behavior, your habits; indirect control, other people's behavior; and no control, the past, certain realities or circumstances.
Okay, direct, indirect, no control.
The proactive approach, it says, puts the first step to solving all 3 types of problems squarely within your circle of influence.
Even the ones you have no control over, how does that work?
Okay, for direct control problems, like a bad habit of yours, the first step is obviously changing your own habits. That's in your circle of influence.
Makes sense.
For indirect control problems, like dealing with a difficult boss or colleague, the first step isn't changing them, it's changing your methods of influence, how you interact, listen, persuade, model behavior. That's in your circle of influence.
Okay, change my approach.
And for no control problems, things you absolutely cannot change, like the past or maybe a chronic health condition. The first step is changing how you see the problem, how you choose to accept it, how you respond internally, finding meaning or learning from it. That choice, your inner response, is always in your circle of influence.
So no matter how big or external the problem feels, the proactive person finds the starting point for the solution within their own power to act or respond. You're never truly powerless.
Exactly. This work uses the story of Joseph from the Old Testament as a powerful illustration. Sold into slavery, thrown in prison circumstances utterly beyond his control, right?
Totally. Victim territory.
But Joseph remained proactive. He focused on what he could be: diligent, trustworthy, resourceful, honest, regardless of his situation. He worked within his tiny circle of influence.
Focusing on his character, his own actions.
And by developing his character and competence within his circle of influence, he gained increasing influence, eventually rising to oversee entire kingdoms. His inner choices changed his outer reality over time.
He didn't wait for freedom or rescue. He changed himself. And that ultimately changed his circumstances. That's powerful.
It's a powerful example of focusing on B. This is a dramatic paradigm shift. because it's so much easier to complain or blame, to focus on if only I had a better boss, or if I just had more time.
Right, focusing on
The
conditions.
proactive approach focuses on B. I can be more patient, I can be more resourceful, I can be more loving. Focusing on a spouse's flaws immobilizes you and diminishes your positive influence. Working on being a great partner, however, is within your control and is the most powerful way to influence the relationship.
It's about owning your part, owning your response, regardless of the other person.
Yes, and this work challenges you with a 30-day test of proactivity. For 1 month, consciously focus only on your circle of influence.
Just that, what does that involve?
Make and keep small commitments to yourself and others. Be a model, not a critic. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Don't argue for other people's weaknesses. And definitely don't make excuses or argue for your own.
Oof! No complaining about yourself either.
When you make a mistake, admit it quickly, correct it if possible, and learn from it. Just work on yourself, on B. See what happens.
That sounds incredibly challenging, but also truly liberating. It means you have the power to start changing things right now, today.
It puts the power, the responsibility back in your hands. This work suggests that those who daily exercise this freedom of choice expand it, while those who don't find it shrinks until they feel like they're being lived, just reacting to scripts written by others or by circumstance.
Okay, so habit 1 is be proactive, recognizing you're the programmer. You choose your response. You own your weather. Once you know you can choose, where should you choose to go? What's next?
That leads perfectly into habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. This introduces the principle of two creations.
Two creations.
Everything we're told is created mentally, that's the first creation, before it is created physically, that's the second creation.
The idea comes first, then the reality, like a blueprint before a building.
Exactly. Think about building a home. You envision it, you sketch it out, you create detailed blueprints. That's the first creation, the mental one.
All the planning.
Only then do you start the physical work of hammering nails and pouring concrete to the second creation. Trying to build without a clear blueprint leads to chaos, costly changes, rework, and problems down the line.
Or starting a business without defining its purpose, its values, who it serves, just jumping in.
Exactly. That's a recipe for confusion. The work gives examples like planning a trip. You need a destination first, then the route. Planting a garden, you plan it first. Writing a speech, you outline it first.
You need the endpoint clear.
It stresses that to the extent we accept responsibility for both creations and consciously design that first, mental creation, we expand our circle of influence. We're being proactive about our direction.
And if we don't take charge of that first creation, if we skip the blueprint stage in life,
What happens? We end up living by default.
living by default, what does that look like? Sounds kind of passive.
It is. This work says if we don't develop self-awareness and take responsibility for that first creation, we essentially allow others, our family, our colleagues, societal pressures, circumstances to write our scripts for us.
So we just react.
We react to their agendas, often driven by our own vulnerabilities, our need for acceptance, our past conditioning, rather than consciously designing our lives based on our own deepest values and principles.
So if you don't decide what's important to you or what your purpose is, the world will decide for you. Ouch.
That's the outcome this work warns against. And it makes an important distinction here between leadership and management, which ties into this.
Okay, leadership versus management. How does that fit?
Leadership is the first creation. It's about asking the big questions. What jungle are we in? What are we trying to accomplish? It's visionary, setting the direction, defining purpose and philosophy, often using the creative, intuitive right side of the brain.
Seeing the big picture, setting the course.
Management is the second creation.
Sure.
It's asking, how do we climb the trees in this jungle most efficiently? It's about logistics, planning, execution, systems, using the logical, analytical left side of the brain.
Both are important, right?
Absolutely. But leadership must come first. Like that powerful image this work uses. You can be efficiently straightening deck chairs on the Titanic.
Right. Great management, terrible leadership. You're efficiently doing the wrong thing, heading for disaster.
Exactly. No management success can compensate for leadership failure. This work argues that too many individuals and organizations get trapped in management mode, focused solely on efficiency, control, checklists, and the bottom line, without ever clarifying their core purpose or direction.
Just climbing the ladder faster and faster without checking if it's leaning against the right wall.
That's a great way to put it. So begin with the end in mind is about providing that personal leadership, defining that clear direction for your own life.
Taking charge of the first creation for yourself.
Yes, and it ties back directly to proactivity. Using our self-awareness, imagination, and conscience, we can engage in what this work calls re-scripting.
Re-scripting, like rewriting your own program.
Kind of. Consciously becoming your own first creator and writing your own script for your life instead of living out the scripts others gave you. The most practical way this is often done is by creating a personal mission statement.
A personal mission statement, like a constitution for your life.
Exactly. Aligning your actions, your daily choices, with your deepest values and principles, rather than external pressures or past conditioning. It quotes Viktor Frankl again, suggesting we detect rather than invent our missions, implying there's a unique purpose or contribution waiting to be discovered within each of us.
That's deep. It's like writing your own operating system, but based on your core principles, not just whatever code got installed by accident growing up.
It requires significant introspection, definitely not a quick 5-minute exercise, but incredibly valuable for guiding your choices.
Okay, so habit 1 is understanding you have the power to choose. Proactivity. Habit 2 is deciding where you're headed, writing your personal script. Begin with the end in mind. What's habit 3? How do you live that script?
Habit 3 is put first things first. This work frames this as the second creation. In action, it's the physical creation. It's the exercise of independent will to prioritize and execute your life's mission.
Living the program you wrote in habit 2.
Powered by the self-awareness and choice of habit 1.
Living the blueprint you designed, day by day.
Yes, it's essentially effective self-management. And the emphasis here is strongly on focusing on what's truly important, not just what feels urgent.
The classic time management dilemma, important versus urgent.
Right. Important activities are those aligned with your mission, your values, your high-priority goals, the things that really matter in the long run. Urgent activities are those that scream for attention now, often driven by external demands, crises, or deadlines, and they're not always important.
Like the phone ringing constantly or endless emails. Urgent, maybe, but not always contributing to your main goals.
Exactly. This work champions what it calls principle-centered quadrant 2 organizing. Remember the time management matrix?
Vaguely. 4 quadrant.
Yeah. Quadrant then's urgent and important. Crises, deadlines. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. Interruptions, some meetings, popular activities. Quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important. Time wasters, busy work, mindless scrolling.
Okay. So quadrant 2 is...
Quadrant 2 is important but not urgent. This is the sweet spot for effectiveness.
What kinds of things are in quadrant 2?
Things like building relationships, long-range planning, preventative activities like exercise or car maintenance, learning new skills, personal renewal, preparation, basically all the high-leverage activities that contribute most significantly to your long-term effectiveness, capacity, PC, and fulfillment.
But they're the easiest to put off, right? Because they're not screaming at you.
Precisely. They're the easiest to neglect because they don't create immediate pressure. Crises always push them aside if you let them. Effective people, this work says, spend significant time in quadrant 2.
And where do you find the time for those crucial quadrant 2 activities? Life feels so full already.
This work is blunt. The only place you'll find the time initially is by taking it from quadrant's 3rd, urgent, but not important, and quadrant 4, not urgent, not important.
So saying no to the unimportant stuff.
Yes, this absolutely requires proactivity. Habit 1, the courage to say yes to your important quadrant 2 priorities by learning to say no to less important demands, even if they feel urgent or others pressure you. You have to prioritize based on your mission. Habit 2.
Saying no to the urgent but unimportant stuff can be incredibly difficult, especially pleasing people or keeping busy.
It is, especially if you're someone who is conditioned to seek acceptance or avoid conflict. But effective self-management, this work argues, is built on independent will, that power to choose from. Habit 1. It's the ability to make commitments to yourself based on your habit 2 mission and keep them.
Integrity.
Yes. To subordinate your impulses, your feelings, your desire for immediate ease or approval to your deeper values. That's integrity in action. Discipline driven by purpose.
So, habit 3 is the disciplined execution of your priorities, day in and day out, staying true to your mission, and consistently choosing the important over the merely urgent. Living it.
That's a great summary. And it's not just about time management tools like planners or apps, though those can help. It's about being principle-centered.
How does that play out?
Well, this work contrasts being efficient with things, which is fine, organize your desk, and effective with people, which is essential. Trying to apply rigid efficiency to people, like scheduling exactly 10 minutes of quality time for a deep conversation with your child or partner.
Yeah, that feels awkward and probably ineffective.
Right. It often creates new problems because relationships need flexibility and responsiveness. Principle-centered people, grounded in the values they defined in Habit 2, can subordinate a rigid schedule when a higher value, like a genuine relationship need or unique opportunity, emerges.
They're guided by a compass, their values and principles, rather than just being enslaved to a clock or a calendar, the schedule.
Exactly. It describes this fourth generation of
Mhm.
self-management as principle-centered, conscious-directed, focused on unique mission, balancing different roles in life, parent, spouse, worker, individual, and prioritizing relationships and results over just managing time. It's about managing yourself.
All right, so habits 1, 2, and 3. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first. These are the private victories. They build independence, character, self-mastery. That foundation is essential for the public victories, right? You can't skip ahead.
Absolutely. You cannot achieve lasting success with others, public victory, without first achieving success with yourself, private victory. Character comes first. That journey into working effectively with others starts with Habit 4. Think win-win.
Think win-win. Okay, this is where we move into the realm of effective interdependence you talked about.
Exactly. You're moving from I to we.
Can't skip the private victories and expect the public ones to work, though. Still need that foundation.
Nope, no shortcuts, as we've seen. That law of the harvest again. Thinking win-win isn't just a negotiation strategy or a technique you pull out sometimes. This work calls it a total philosophy of human interaction.
A whole way of thinking.
Yes, it's about constantly seeking mutual benefit in all your interactions, finding solutions that are mutually satisfying, where, crucially, all parties feel good about the decision and feel committed to the action plan. It's not about manipulation, it's about genuine mutual gain.
So, not just me winning or you winning, but finding a solution where everyone feels they've gained something important, everyone walks away feeling respected.
Yes. This work argues that much of our thinking is flawed because it's based on power and position rather than on principle. We're often conditioned to think competitively.
Like, for me to win, you have to lose.
That's the win-lose mentality. Win-win sees life, especially relationships and long-term collaboration, as cooperative, not just competitive. It stems from a deeper belief, the paradigm that there is plenty for everybody.
The abundance mentality you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It's the belief in a third alternative, a creative solution that's often better than either my way or your way alone could ever be. Synergy often comes from this.
Okay. What are the common traps, the alternatives to win-win that this work identifies? You mentioned win-lose.
Right. It lists 6 paradigms of human interaction.
Right.
Win-win, obviously the ideal. Then win-lose.
The competitive authoritarian approach. I get my way, you don't.
Often rooted in comparison, power dynamics, maybe even childhood conditioning where love felt conditional on performance. Then there's lose-win.
The opposite, the doormat approach.
Kind of. Capitulating to keep the peace, seeking acceptance or approval above all else, burying your own needs. Then there's lose-lose.
Sounds bad for everyone.
It is. Often happens in highly dependent relationships or conflict situations driven by revenge or stubbornness. If I'm going down, you're going down with me. Think bitter lawsuits or wars.
Nasty. Any others?
And then just plain win. This person only thinks about getting what they want and doesn't even care if the other person loses or not.
Yeah.
It's just self-centered.
Focus solely on their own outcome.
And the highest form of win-win, this work suggests, is actually win-win or no deal.
Win-win or no deal. Tell me more about that.
It means if we genuinely can't find a solution that is truly beneficial and satisfying to both of us, we agree to disagree agreeably and not make a deal at all for now.
Instead of forcing a bad compromise.
Exactly. Instead of pushing for your way, win-lose, or giving in, lose-win, this is crucial because it preserves the relationship. You value the relationship and the principle enough to walk away from a transaction that violates it.
That no-deal option is powerful. It requires confidence and values the relationship PC, the production capability, over the immediate P, the deal itself.
Precisely. It protects the long-term relationship. This work also identifies 3 essential character traits needed to truly live and think win-win consistently. It's not just intellectual.
More character coming into play. Not surprised now. What are they?
Always comes back to character. First, integrity. We talked about this with Habit 3. It's the cornerstone. Build in habits 1 to 3, knowing your values, making commitments to yourself and your principles, and keeping them, defining yourself from the inside out.
And how does that relate directly to win-win?
Without integrity, any attempt at win-win techniques feels hollow, manipulative. People sense if you're not genuine, if you don't keep your word. You have to be trustworthy to build a win-win relationship. Your actions have to match your words.
Okay, integrity is number one. What's second?
Second, maturity. This work defines maturity in a specific way here, as the balance between courage and consideration.
Courage and consideration.
Courage is the willingness and ability to express your convictions, your feelings, your needs clearly and respectfully. Consideration is the willingness and ability to genuinely listen to, understand, and respect the thoughts and feelings of others.
So it's not being afraid to speak up, but also not running roughshod over the other person, finding that balance.
That balance is the key. High courage, low consideration. That's often win-lose. You steamroll people. High consideration, low courage. That's often lose-win. You're a pushover. High on both. That's real maturity, enabling you to listen empathetically and advocate for your own needs courageously. That's the foundation for win-win dialogue.
So it's not being a pushover or a bully, but finding that strong, respectful middle ground requires skill and character.
Right. And the third trait is the abundance mentality we touched on.
Believing there's enough for everyone.
Yes. This is the paradigm that there's plenty out there for everyone, plenty of success, recognition, profit, joy, resources. It flows from a deep inner sense of personal worth and security, often built through those private victories.
A belief in a big pie, where everyone can have a good slice, maybe even grow the pie together.
Versus the scarcity mentality, which sees life as a finite zero-sum game. There's only so much pie, and if you get a bigger piece, that means less for me.
That sounds stressful and competitive.
It is. People with a scarcity mentality, this work says, struggle to share credit, recognition, or profit. They find it hard to be genuinely happy for others' successes because they feel threatened by them. They often compare, compete unnecessarily, and might even try to surround themselves with compliant yes men rather than capable people who might challenge them.
Feeling like someone else's win automatically means you lose something. That's a limiting belief.
That's the scarcity paradigm. The abundance mentality, in contrast, enables sharing, opens doors to creativity and synergy, makes you value differences instead of feeling threatened by them, and is the true psychological foundation for public victory, for successful, mutually beneficial interactions.
So win-win isn't just a tactic you deploy. It requires a strong character, integrity, a balanced approach to interaction, maturity, courage plus consideration, and a generous worldview, abundance mentality. That's a high bar.
It is, but it's built step by step.
Yeah.
And it's built fundamentally on relationships, which this work describes beautifully using the emotional bank account metaphor.
The emotional bank account,
Right.
like deposits and withdrawals in a bank, but for trust in a relationship.
Exactly. Deposits build trust. Things like courtesy, kindness, honesty, keeping commitments, really understanding someone, apologizing sincerely when you mess up.
Okay, those build the balance. Withdrawals.
Withdrawals erode trust. Things like impatience, cutting people off, being critical or dismissive, breaking promises, showing disrespect, betrayal, appearing two-faced.
Pretty clear.
When you have a high balance in the emotional bank account with someone, communication is easy, open, effective. You have a cushion of trust, you can even make small mistakes, and the reserve covers it because they know your overall intent is good.
But when the account is low or overdrawn, uh-oh.
This work says you're walking on eggshells, or even navigating landmines. Communication becomes tense, guarded, defensive. People resort to politicking, accommodating unwillingly, or just outright conflict because the fundamental foundation of trust isn't there to handle differences constructively. Many families and organizations unfortunately operate in this low-trust overdraft zone.
It takes so much more energy and effort to get anything done when you don't have that trust reserve, doesn't it?
So much more. And this work suggests that dealing with someone who is stuck in a win-lose or other non-win-win paradigm is the real test of habit 4. You can't force them to be win-win.
So what do you do?
In that situation, the relationship itself becomes the focus. You focus on your circle of influence, making consistent deposits in the emotional bank account through genuine respect, deep listening, we'll get to that, expressing yourself courageously but considerately, and remaining proactive and principle-centered yourself.
You work on building the trust balance first.
Your win-win character and your effort in the relationship itself is often the biggest deposit you can make, even if you can't reach a win-win agreement immediately. You're investing in the PC.
By demonstrating the principle yourself, being consistent, you build the possibility of win-win happening eventually, maybe transforming the dynamic.
It's transformational leadership in action, starting with you. And yes, as mentioned, no deal or perhaps temporary compromise might be necessary steps along the way. But the ongoing goal is to build that relationship, PC, so win-win becomes possible over time.
And this extends beyond just one-on-one.
Absolutely. This work also talks about creating win-win agreements, which focus on desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences, often involving self-evaluation, and ensuring the systems in any environment, like family rules or company compensation structures, actually support and reward win-win outcomes. You have to water the flowers you want to grow.
Right. You can't say you value teamwork but only reward individual competition. The system has to align with the philosophy.
Principle and practice must match for it to be credible.
All right. Habit 4 is think win-win, seeking mutual benefit, building high-trust relationships. What's the next step in effective interdependence? What's habit 5?
Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And listen to this. This work calls this the single most important principle in the field of interpersonal relations.
Wow. The single most important. That's a huge claim. Why so important? What does it really mean?
Because the most common problem in communication, it notes, is that we have a deep tendency to prescribe before we diagnose.
Prescribe before diagnose, like a doctor giving meds without an exam.
Exactly. We rush in with advice, solutions, judgments, or our own story based on our own perspective before we have truly, deeply understood the other person or the situation from their point of view.
We jump to conclusions or solutions too fast.
We do. The example in the work about the father reacting to his daughter saying she dislikes school is perfect. She says, "I hate school." And he immediately jumps to fixing, advising, sharing his own school experiences, judging her feelings.
Without ever stopping to really listen to why she feels that way, what's actually going on with her.
He's prescribing based on his own autobiography, not diagnosing her reality. We're so quick to offer our map without even looking at theirs, let alone understanding it.
Guilty is charged sometimes. It's easy to do.
Like that doctor who prescribes medicine without ever examining the patient or listening to their symptoms. Effective influence, effective problem solving, this work says, requires understanding first. And it places enormous emphasis on listening as the key to that understanding.
Okay, listening. Seems basic, but maybe not.
Well, it contrasts common listening levels. There's ignoring, not really listening at all. There's pretending to listen. Yeah, right? There's selective listening, hearing only parts, often what concerns your own biases. And there's attentive listening, paying attention, focusing on the words being said.
Okay, those sound familiar, but attentive listening isn't the goal.
It's better, but not the deepest level. The fifth level, the one required here, is empathic listening.
Empathic listening, how is that different from just paying attention?
It's listening with the intent to truly understand, not just listening with the intent to reply, rebut, advise, or jump in with your own story. It's a paradigm shift in why you're listening.
So the goal isn't formulating in my response while they talk, it's getting inside their head.
Exactly. It's trying to see the world the way they see it, to understand their paradigm, their frame of reference, their feelings, their underlying meaning, using not just your ears, but also your eyes for nonverbals and your heart for the feeling behind the words. This work calls it giving psychological air.
Psychological air, like
Yeah.
giving someone the space and safety to fully express themselves and feel truly heard without judgment.
Yes. Think about how good it feels when someone really listens to you, really gets where you're coming from. That's psychological air. It's incredibly validating.
It really is. It builds connection.
And empathic listening is crucial for several reasons. First, it builds trust like crazy. It's a massive deposit in the emotional bank account. People trust those who they feel understand them.
Makes sense.
Second, it provides you with accurate data about the real issue because you're getting the full picture from their perspective, not just your interpretation.
Right.
You can't solve a problem you don't understand accurately.
Right. Avoids fixing the wrong thing.
And third, crucially, it's the key to influence. People are far, far more open to being influenced by someone, to listening to their perspective after they feel that person has truly understood them. Understanding precedes influence.
Because they feel respected and safe, so they lower their defenses.
That opens the door. Then, and only then, comes the second part of the habit. Then seek to be understood.
Okay, so understanding them comes first, then it's my turn.
Yes. This is about effectively communicating your ideas and feelings, your perspective, clearly, logically, and credibly. This work brings in the ancient Greek concepts of ethos, pathos, and logos here, but framed by the habits.
Ethos, pathos, logos, character, emotion, logic, the art of persuasion.
Yes, but seen through this principle-centered lens, Ethos is your personal credibility, your trustworthiness, your character built by habits 1, 2, and 3. And this work says ethos is the most important element by far. People believe you before they believe your words.
Your integrity speaks loudest.
Pathos is the empathic side, connecting with the other person's feelings and perspective, showing you understand, which you genuinely do because you listen first. Logos is the logic, the reasoning, the structure of your presentation, your words.
And how do they work together?
The critical point is that pathos, demonstrating you understand and care about their perspective, opens the way for your logos, your logic and reasoning, to actually be heard and considered. You've built the bridge of understanding first.
So emotion opens the door for logic.
And your ethos, your fundamental character and trustworthiness built through those private victories, is what makes your whole communication credible in the first place. If people sense you're just using empathic listening as a technique to manipulate them,
It backfires completely. They see right through it.
your lack of character, your lack of genuine intent will undermine any attempt at influence. Technique without character is manipulation.
So habit 5 is truly listen first with empathy to understand their world. Build that trust and connection. Get the real picture, and then share your perspective clearly and credibly, knowing that your character is the most persuasive thing you have. Deep stuff.
That's the principle of habit 5. Understanding deeply precedes influence and effective problem solving. It takes time, but saves time in the end.
Okay, habit 4 is about finding mutual gain. Win-win. Habit 5 is about achieving deep mutual understanding. Seek first to understand. What happens when you combine those two? What's habit 6?
That leads beautifully to habit 6. Synergize. This is the principle of creative cooperation, is where the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts.
Synergy, that word gets thrown around a lot. What does it mean here?
Here, it means that 1 plus 1 can equal 3, or 8, or 16, or even more. It's about working together to produce a third alternative, a solution, an outcome, an insight that is genuinely better than what either party could have possibly achieved alone, or even through compromise.
So it's not just compromise, like splitting the difference. It's creating something brand new and better together.
Exactly. Compromise is often 1 plus 1 equals 1.5.
Yeah.
Both sides give something up. Synergy is 1 plus 1 equals 3 or more. Both sides gain something unexpected and better. It's creative.
Okay. And how does it build on the previous habits?
Synergy absolutely thrives on a foundation of high trust, built through win-win thinking, habit 4, and deep empathic understanding, achieved through habit 5. Critically, it requires valuing the differences between people.
Valuing differences, not just tolerating them.
Valuing them. Seeing differences in perspective, experience, or opinion, not as threats or roadblocks, but as opportunities, as resources for creativity. This work uses the example of seeing the ambiguous old woman, young lady drawing differently.
Yeah, the optical illusion picture.
Synergy comes when two people see it differently, respect each other's viewpoint. You see a young lady. Interesting. Tell me more. And then combine those perspectives to get a fuller understanding of the whole picture, or even generate new ideas. It's not about forcing everyone to see the same way.
Like the example from the source of the husband and wife planning a vacation.
Yes, that's a perfect illustration. He wants a fishing trip in the wilderness.
Okay.
Solitude, nature. She wants to visit her ailing mother in another state. Family connection, care. A compromise might be a shorter fishing trip and a shorter visit, neither fully satisfying.
Yeah, kind of meh for both.
But by using habit 5, seeking first to understand the deep needs and desires behind each position, and habit 4, committing to a win-win solution, they synergize. They find a location near her mother that also has great fishing spots, maybe involve the kids, create a unique family experience that meets both their underlying needs in a way that's richer and better than either original proposal.
They created a third alternative. That's synergy in action.
Exactly. It's a transformation, not just a transaction.
Right.
They build on their differences to create something new. The opposite of this is negative synergy.
Negative synergy, how does it happen?
This work says it often comes from insecure people who lack that inner security. Those private victories are missing.
Sure.
They feel threatened by differences, by dissenting opinions.
So they try to shut them down.
They try to clone others, make everyone agree with them, surround themselves with people who think exactly alike. Because, as this work puts it, sameness is not oneness, uniformity is not unity. They mistake agreement for effectiveness.
Trying to make everyone the same actually stifles creativity and prevents those synergistic breakthroughs. You lose the value of different perspectives.
It does. It leads to groupthink and poor decisions. This work also makes an important point that interpersonal synergy within yourself, is key to achieving interpersonal synergy with others.
Synergy within myself, how does that work?
It's about integrating the logical, analytical, verbal left side of your brain with the intuitive, creative, holistic right side. When you can access and value both ways of thinking, this work uses the phrase manage from the left, lead from the right. You create a kind of synergy within yourself. You're more whole, more capable.
Being comfortable using both your analytical skills and your creative or intuitive insights, not just relying on one.
Yes. The example of the husband and wife communication breakdown we mentioned earlier is relevant here again. The very logical left-brain husband struggled to process his more intuitive, feeling-based right-brain wife's communication. They were operating from different internal maps, different brain dominance, making external synergy difficult until they learned to value and bridge those differences.
So synergy, habit 6, is built on the high trust of win-win, habit 4, and the deep understanding from listening, habit 5. It involves valuing differences to creatively cooperate and find third alternatives that are better than the sum of the parts. And it starts with integrating different parts of your own thinking, too.
That completes the public victories, the habits of effective interdependence. You've journeyed, ideally, from dependence, relying on others, to independence, relying on self, habits 1 to 3, to interdependence, cooperating effectively with others, habits 4 to 6.
So we've covered the journey through the 6 habits that define effectiveness in interacting with ourselves and others. What's the 7th habit? Is there more?
There is. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. This is the habit that makes all the others possible on an ongoing basis. It's the habit of renewal.
Renewal.
Yes. Remember the PPC balance, the golden eggs and the goose. Habit 7 is about taking care of the goose. It's about renewing your production capability, PC, taking care of the greatest asset you have, which is you. This work describes it as absolutely essential for maintaining effectiveness across all the other 6 habits long term.
Like literally stopping to sharpen a woodcutter's saw so it can keep cutting efficiently. If you don't, it gets dull and useless.
Precisely that analogy. If you're too busy sawing, production, nonstop, you might neglect sharpening the saw, maintaining your production capability. Eventually, sawing becomes incredibly slow, hard work, less effective, and you burn out. You have to take time to sharpen the saw.
Okay, so how do we sharpen the saw personally? What does that involve?
This work outlines this renewal in 4 fundamental dimensions of our nature, dimensions that need regular attention.
4 dimensions. What are they?
Yes. The physical dimension, caring for your physical body through proper eating, getting enough rest and relaxation, and consistent exercise. The basics of health.
Got it.
The spiritual dimension, renewing your connection to your core values, your center, your commitment to your purpose from habit 2. This might be through practices like study, meditation, prayer, spending time in nature, immersing yourself in great music or literature, whatever connects you to your deepest self and principles.
Spirit or values, okay.
The mental dimension, developing and expanding your mind. Things like reading broadly and deeply, reflective writing or journaling, visualizing your goals, planning and organizing, connecting back to habits 2 and 3, keeping your mind sharp and growing.
Mind. Makes sense. What's the 4th?
And the social-emotional dimension, renewing yourself through meaningful connection and service in your relationships. This involves practicing habits 4, 5, and 6, making emotional bank account deposits, seeking to understand others empathetically, contributing synergistically, engaging in meaningful service. This social-emotional renewal particularly draws on the intrinsic security you build from within. Through the private victories, habits 1 to 3, you connect from strength, not neediness.
Body, spirit, mind, and social-emotional relationships. It's holistic self-care covering all the bases.
And this work stresses the need for balanced renewal across all 4 dimensions. Neglecting one inevitably impacts the others over time. If you burn out physically, your mental and emotional states suffer. If you neglect relationships, your spirit might dim.
Like a 4-legged stool needs all legs to be stable.
Good analogy. It gives organizational examples, too, of how focusing only on economic results while neglecting people, social-emotional PC or innovation mental PC, eventually leads to decay and serious problems down the line.
You have to invest in all parts of the system, yourself included, for it to be healthy and productive long-term. Maintain the PC.
Absolutely. Sharpening the saw is the ultimate PC activity. And this work highlights something practical. It calls the daily private victory.
Daily private victory. Sounds achievable.
It suggests aiming for a minimum of 1 hour a day, dedicated consistently to renewing yourself in the physical, spiritual, and mental dimensions. Maybe 20 minutes each, or focused on one area per day.
An hour a day focused on renewing one or more of those internal dimensions. That feels like a concrete, actionable step entirely within your circle of influence, habit 1.
It is, and it's classic quadrant 2 activity, deeply important but usually not urgent. It's the proactive investment that prevents crises, burnout, and decay down the line. This consistent daily effort of renewal is described as the key to developing and integrating all 7 habits into your life and building the inner strength and security needed for effective public victories.
It fuels everything else.
It does. This consistent effort creates what this work calls an upward spiral of growth. You learn, you commit, you do, you learn more, commit to a higher level, do better. It's a process of continuous improvement, moving progressively higher, guided by an educated conscience. And it reinforces, yet again, that there are no shortcuts here. The law of the harvest applies to personal renewal and growth just as much as it applies to farming.
You have to put in the consistent effort of planting, cultivating, and renewing yourself to see the results bloom in your life.
That's the principle. Habit 7 closes the loop and makes all the others sustainable.
Wow. Okay. So, looking back at this deep dive, we've really covered a huge amount of ground. We've journeyed from the frustration of quick fixes that don't work for deep problems.
To understanding the need for a deeper, principle-centered, inside-out approach, starting with character over just personality techniques.
We explored the power of our paradigms, our mental maps, and how changing those is fundamental. How we need to move from dependence to independence and then choose interdependence.
Right, understanding that crucial PPC balance, nurturing the goose that lays the golden eggs in ourselves and our relationships.
And then we walk through the 7 habits themselves being proactive. Habit 1, beginning with a clear end in mind. Habit 2, putting first things first. Habit 3, building those essential private victories of self-mastery and integrity.
Which then form the foundation for the public victories. Thinking win-win, habit 4, seeking first to understand, then to be understood, habit 5, and synergizing, habit 6, the habits of effective teamwork and communication.
All sustained and enabled by consistently sharpening the saw. Habit 7, renewing ourselves physically, spiritually, mentally, and socially, emotionally.
It's a comprehensive, integrated framework for living a life of genuine effectiveness and contribution, moving beyond superficial solutions to address the root causes of our challenges.
This work doesn't promise it's easy or a quick fix, does it?
Not at all. It emphasizes it's a process, often requiring effort and persistence. But it suggests that while the growth is often evolutionary, step by step, the net effect over time can be revolutionary, yielding significant benefits and payoffs along the way in all areas of life.
It really hammers home that idea of building the capability, that PC, as much as, if not more than, just chasing the immediate results, the P. That balance is everything.
That balances effectiveness.
Then thinking about those initial painful problems, we started with the feeling of distrust despite success, the marriage gone flat, the desperate attempts to help a struggling child. This whole framework suggests that the real power to address them fundamentally lies within us.
Yes, in changing our own maps first, our own character, our own habits, starting consistently from the inside out.
It squarely places the responsibility and the power within our circle of influence. By choosing to be proactive, by defining our values and purpose, by prioritizing what's important, by renewing ourselves, by seeking first to understand others.
You proactively reduce the chronic problems and crises in your life. You build the capacity to handle challenges effectively and create positive outcomes.
It's a challenging thought that the deep solution starts solely with ourselves, not with fixing the world out there. But it's also incredibly empowering, isn't it?
It really is. It means the power to start changing things for the better is right here, right now within you.
It's a journey, not a destination, of building the character and capability required for lasting effectiveness and hopefully genuine fulfillment in all areas of life. Lots to think about there.
Definitely a lifelong process of growth and contribution guided by these principles.